Hello there. It's Tony. Tony Jenkins. I'm 80 years old now, can you believe it? 80 years. Feels like a lifetime and no time at all at once. I'm sitting here in my little apartment, the sun's coming through the window, warming these old bones. It's quiet. Peaceful, mostly. A far cry from some of the roads I've traveled. There's a story I need to tell. It's been sitting in my chest, a heavy stone, for years. My daughter, Sarah, my own flesh and blood, she threw me out of my own house. The house I built with my darling Eleanor, God rest her soul, threw me out like I was nothing. I as an old man, her father, slept on a cold park bench for 2 nights. And I tell you, it wasn't the biting wind that got to me, not really. It was the ice in her eyes. The coldness there, that's what chilled me to the marrow. That's what I can't forget. I'm telling this now because, I'm not getting any younger. And some stories, they need to see the light of day. Maybe there's someone out there, listening to this old man's voice, Anne, who needs to hear it. Maybe it can help someone, somehow. Or maybe, just maybe, saying it all out loud will help me finally lay some of these ghosts to rest. It's a long story, a hard one. So if you're inclined to listen, I'd be grateful for your company. If you feel like it, tell me in the comments where you're listening from. It helps an old fellow feel like he's not just talking to the walls. And if you could, a little like, subscribe to the channel, well, it gives an old heart a bit of a lift. It tells me these words, this life, it's reaching someone. The world was a different place when I was a boy. This was back in the late 1940s, early 50s. The war was over, but its shadow still lingered. We lived in a small town, Oakhaven, not much to it, really. A main street, a few shops, a church with a tall steeple, and rows of modest houses where hard-working folks tried to build a life. My father, Thomas, he was a stern man, worked at the mill, long hours, didn't say much, but his presence filled a room. You respected him, maybe feared him a little. My mother, Martha, she was the soft heart of the family. Kind, always humming a tune, but a bit worn down by life, I think. She tried to buffer us from Dad's moods, from the general hardness of the times. Children, back then, we were mostly seen and not heard. You learned to be quiet, to observe. You learned that life wasn't always fair, but you had to get on with it. We didn't have much, materially speaking. Our house was small, always a bit drafty in winter, but Mom kept it clean, and there was usually something warm on the stove. So I had an older brother, James, who was everything I wasn't. Loud, confident, always getting into scrapes. And a younger sister, Lily. She was a delicate thing, Lily. I always felt protective of her. James, he went off to the city as soon as he could, looking for brighter lights. Lily, she married young, moved a county over, so for a good while it was just me, Mom, and Dad. I wasn't a great scholar, preferred working with my hands. I got an apprenticeship with old Mr. Abernathy, the town carpenter. He was a good man, patient, taught me the feel of wood, the satisfaction of making something true and solid. That's where I learned my trade, and it was a good trade, honest. Then I met Eleanor. Eleanor Hayes, she was sunshine. That's the only word for her. She worked at the bakeries and I'd make excuses to go in, buy a loaf of bread I didn't always need, just to see her smile. She had these bright, intelligent eyes and a laugh that could make you forget all your troubles. It took me months to work up the courage to ask her to the town dance. I was clumsy, tongue-tied, but she said yes. And that night, under the coloured lights in the town hall with a scratchy band playing, that's when my life really began. We courted for a year, walks by the river, picnics when the weather was fine, talking for hours about everything and nothing. She saw something in me, Tony Jenkins, that I hadn't seen in myself. She believed in me. We married in the little church with the tall steeple, a simple wedding, our families, a few friends. Eleanor wore a dress her mother had made, and she looked like an angel. I remember standing there, watching her walk down the aisle and thinking, how did I get so lucky? We started our life together in a tiny rented cottage on the edge of town. It wasn't much, but it was ours. We had dreams, Eleanor and I, a home of our own, a family. We saved every penny. I worked all the hours God sent, doing carpentry jobs, repairs, anything to build our future. Eleanor was thrifty, clever. She could make $1 stretch further than anyone I knew, and she made that little cottage a real home, warm, inviting, full of love. After a couple of years, we had enough for a down payment on a piece of land just outside Oakhaven, a little overgrown, but it had a good oak tree in the middle. We drew up plans for a house, not a grand house, but solid, room to grow. And I built it, mostly with my own hands in the evenings and on weekends. Eleanor would bring me sandwiches and lemonade, sit on a pile of lumber, and we'd talk about where the nursery would go, where we'd plant a garden. Those were good days. Hard days, long days, but good. There was a purpose to it all, you see, a clear, shining purpose. Then Michael came along, our firstborn, a strong, healthy boy. I'd never known a love like it. Holding him in my arms, this tiny, perfect human being. It changed me, made me feel bigger, more responsible. Eleanor was a natural mother, so patient, so loving. Our little house, and the one I'd built, it filled up with baby sounds, with a new kind of joy. A few years later, Sarah was born, my little girl. She was beautiful from the moment I first saw her. Tiny, with a tuft of dark hair, just like Eleanor's. Michael was a boisterous boy, always exploring, but Sarah was quieter, more watchful, and she had me wrapped around her little finger from day one. My princess, I called her. Anything she wanted, if I could give it to her, she got it. Maybe that was a mistake. But how do you say no to a child with eyes like that? A smile that could melt a glacier. Our family life was ordinary, I suppose. School days, scraped knees, bedtime stories. Birthdays, Christmases. We weren't rich, but we had enough. We had each other. Eleanor was the heart of our home. She had a way of making everything right. If Michael was upset about something at school, or if Sarah had a little squabble with a friend, Eleanor would sit them down, talk it through, smooth it all over. She taught them kindness, honesty, or so I thought. Looking back, searching for signs, it's hard. Were there clues about Sarah then? She could be demanding, yes. If Michael had a toy she wanted, she'd often get it. She had a temper sometimes, a flash of stubbornness that reminded me of my father. But what child doesn't? We'd discipline her, of course. Eleanor was firm but fair. I was perhaps some softer, especially with Sarah. My little girl, it's a weakness, I suppose, for a father. You want to protect them, to give them everything. Michael grew into a fine young man, responsible, hard-working, like his mother in temperament. He did well in school, went off to college to study engineering. We were so proud of him. He'd call home every week, tell us about his studies, his new friends. He settled in a city a few hours away after he graduated, got a good job. Sarah was different. She was bright, quick-witted, popular in school, but there was always a restlessness about her. She wasn't content with Oakhaven. She dreamed of bigger things, a more exciting life. After high school, she went to the city too, not for college, but for a secretarial course. Said Oakhaven was too small for her ambitions. It hurt a little to hear her say that about the town where she grew up, where we'd been happy. But you want your children to fly, don't you? Eleanor and I, we settled into a quieter life as empty nesters. The house felt big without the children, but we had each other. We had our garden, our friends. I was still working, though I'd slowed down a bit. We talked about traveling, maybe seeing some of the country when I finally retired. We were comfortable, content, life was good. And then Eleanor got sick. It started subtly. Tiredness, a persistent cough. We didn't think much of it at first. A lingering cold, perhaps. But it didn't go away. It got worse. The doctors, they ran tests, so many tests. I remember sitting in that sterile office, holding Eleanor's hand, the doctor looking at us with that grave expression they learn. Lung cancer, advanced, inoperable. The bottom fell out of my world. Eleanor, my sunshine, my rock. How could this happen? She'd never smoked a day in her life. It was just cruel. A cruel twist of fate. She was brave, my Eleanor. So brave. She faced it with a quiet dignity that broke my heart. There were treatments, of course, chemotherapy, radiation, horrible things that made her weak, sick. I took care of her every moment. Michael came home as often as he could. Sarah came too sometimes, but she seemed uncomfortable, distressed by the illness, by the ugliness of it. She'd hover at the doorway, ask if there was anything she could do, but mostly she seemed eager to leave. I tried not to judge her. People deal with grief, with fear, in different ways. Those last months, they were the hardest of my life. Watching the woman I loved fade away. Trying to be strong for her, for myself, we talked a lot about our life together, our children, our regrets, though there weren't many, our joys, and there were countless. She worried about me, about how I'd manage on my own. I told her not to worry, that I'd be fine. I lie, of course. How could I be fine without her? She died on a cold November morning, in our bed, in the house we'd built together. I was holding her hand. She just slipped away, peaceful at the end. The pain, it was unbearable. A physical ache in my chest that wouldn't go away. The house, once so full of life and love, felt empty, silent, cold. Michael was a pillar of strength. He handled the funeral arrangements, dealt with all the practicalities I was too numb to face. Sarah came, of course. She cried. She seemed genuinely grief-stricken. And for a while I thought maybe this will bring us closer. Maybe, through this shared loss, we'll find a new way to connect. After the funeral, after everyone had gone, the silence in the house was deafening. I'd wander from room to room, touching Eleanor's things. Her knitting basket, still with a half-finished scarf. Her gardening gloves by the back door. Her scent still faintly on her pillow. Every object was a memory, a fresh stab of pain. I didn't know how to live without her. Sarah started coming over more often after Eleanor died. "Just to check on you, Dad," she'd say. She'd tidy up a bit, make me a cup of tea. It was nice at first. I was lonely, desperately lonely. Her presence filled a tiny part of the void Eleanor had left. She was married by then to a man named Tom. I didn't know him well. He was a salesman of some sort, slick, always had a quick answer. Not my kind of man, if I'm honest, but Sarah seemed happy with him, or so she said. They lived in an apartment in the city. A few months after Eleanor passed, Sarah brought Tom with her. They sat me down in the living room, on the sofa where Eleanor and I had spent so many evenings. Sarah did most of the talking. "Dad," she said, her voice full of concern, "we've been worried about you. All alone in this big house. It's too much for you to manage." I bristled a little. "I'm managing just fine, Sarah." The house was my sanctuary, full of Eleanor. The thought of it being too much felt like a criticism, a dismissal of my capabilities. Tom chimed in, smooth as oil. "Tony, we just want what's best for you. Sarah loves you very much, and this place, well, it's a lot of upkeep for one person. Property taxes, repairs. You should be enjoying your retirement, not worrying about all this." Then came the suggestion, "We've been thinking, Dad," Sarah said, taking my hand. Her hand felt small and cool in mine. "What if Tom and I moved in here with you? Just for a while. We could help you out, keep you company. And, well, honestly, our apartment lease is up soon, and rents are so high in the city. It would help us out too, financially. We could save up for a down payment on our own place." I hesitated. The thought of not being alone, it was tempting. But sharing my home, Eleanor's home, with Tom, I wasn't sure. He had a way of looking around the place, a kind of acquisitive gleam in his eye that made me uneasy. But Sarah looked at me with such earnestness. "Please, Dad. It would mean so much to us, and I could take care of you, make sure you're eating properly, that you're not lonely." Loneliness, that was the key. It was a raw wound. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. "All right," I said. "For a while. Until you get back on your feet." "Oh, Dad, thank you." Sarah hugged me. A quick, almost perfunctory hug. Tom clapped me on the shoulder. "You won't regret this, Tony. We'll be one big, happy family." They moved in the following month. And it started subtly. The changes. A piece of furniture moved here, a picture taken down there. Just to make a bit more space, "Dad," Sarah would say. My den, where I kept my books and Eleanor's old photo albums, became Tom's home office. My workshop in the garage, where I still pottered about with bits of wood. started to fill up with Tom's business inventory. Boxes of cheap electronics and gadgets he was trying to sell online. Their things began to outnumber mine. The house started to feel not like mine anymore. Tom was always on his phone, pacing, talking loudly about deals, about money. Sarah was often out with friends, or shopping. The promised company, the care, it didn't quite materialize as I'd imagined. I found myself making my own meals more often than not. Then came the financial requests. "Dad, we're a bit short this month. Could you help us out with the utilities?" Or, "Tom's car needs urgent repairs, Dad." "We'll pay you back, of course." The paybacks never seemed to happen. My pension, which had always been enough for Eleanor and me, started to dwindle. I tried to talk to Sarah. "Honey, this isn't what we agreed. I thought you were saving up." She'd get defensive. "Dad, we're trying. It's just things are expensive, and Tom's business is just getting started. Don't you want to help your own daughter?" The implication was clear. If I didn't help, I didn't love her. Tom was worse. He'd make snide remarks. "Come on, Tony, you're sitting on a gold mine here. This house is worth a fortune. What are you going to do with all that money anyway, at your age?" The disrespect stung deeply. This was my home, built with my love for Eleanor, with my sweat and sacrifice. It wasn't just bricks and mortar or a financial asset. It was my life. They started to isolate me. When Michael called, Sarah would often answer the phone. "Dad's resting," she'd say, or "He's a bit confused today." She'd relay messages, but I suspected she was filtering them, twisting them. Michael lived a few hours away, busy with his own family and career. He'd visit when he could, but Sarah and Tom always put on a show then. Everything was fine. Dad was happy. They were taking such good care of me. Michael would look concerned, ask me if I was okay, and I was ashamed to admit what was happening in my own home. So I'd say, "Yes, son, everything's fine." What a fool I was. Friends from town, old neighbors, they stopped dropping by. Sarah or Tom would meet them at the door, make excuses. "Dad's not feeling up to visitors today." Or they'd be so inhospitable that people just gave up. I felt like a prisoner in my own house. My world shrank to those four walls, and even within them my space was constantly diminishing. Eleanor's things, they started to disappear. A little china figurine she loved, gone from the mantelpiece. "Oh, it must have gotten broken during cleaning, Dad." "So clumsy of me," Sarah would say, without a hint of real regret. Her favorite armchair, the one she always sat in to read, was moved to the attic, replaced by some modern, uncomfortable thing Tom liked. Each loss was a fresh stab to my heart. It felt like they were erasing her, erasing our life together. My health began to suffer. The stress, the constant tension, the poor diet. I lost weight. I had trouble sleeping. I went to Dr. Evans, our old family physician. I tried to explain vaguely that I was feeling down, stressed. He prescribed some pills for anxiety. He asked if I was lonely. I said yes. He suggested I join a seniors club. He didn't understand. How could he? I couldn't bring myself to tell him the truth, the shameful truth, that my own daughter was making my life a misery. They had a child, a little boy named Leo, a couple of years after they moved in. My grandson. For a while, I hoped that would change things. A baby in the house. Surely that would soften Sarah, bring back some of the kindness I remembered. And Leo, he was a beautiful baby. I loved him instantly. I'd offer to hold him, to play with him. Sometimes Sarah would let me, but often she'd whisk him away. "So you'll drop him, Dad. Or he needs his nap." Tom saw Leo as another lever. "The boy needs space, Tony. We need to convert your old bedroom into a proper nursery for him." My bedroom, the one I'd shared with Eleanor for over 40 years. They moved me into the small spare room at the back of the house, the one that used to be a sewing room. It was cold, cramped, but it had a lock on the door. I started locking it at night. The financial demands escalated. Tom's business ventures always seemed to be on the verge of a big breakthrough, always needing just one more injection of cash. My savings, the money Eleanor and I had carefully put aside for our old age, for emergencies, it was disappearing. They persuaded me to add Sarah's name to my bank account, just to make it easier to pay bills for you, Dad, in case you're not well. I was hesitant, but I was also tired. Tired of fighting, tired of the constant pressure, so I did it. Another mistake. A colossal one. The arguments became more frequent. I'd try to assert myself, to reclaim some small piece of my life, my home. Sarah, this is still my house. I need to have a say in what happens here. Her responses became colder, sharper. Don't be ridiculous, Dad. We're doing all this for you. You're just ungrateful. You're getting old, your mind isn't what it used to be. Gaslighting, I think they call it now, making me doubt my own sanity. Tom was more blunt. Look, old man, face it, you're a burden. We're the ones keeping this roof over your head, practically. You should be thanking us. A burden in my own home. The words cut deeper than any knife. I remember one particular incident. It was Eleanor's birthday. I always put fresh flowers on her photograph on the mantelpiece. I'd bought a small bouquet of her favorite freesias. When I came into the living room, the photograph was gone. In its place was a large, garish painting Tom had bought. Where's Eleanor's picture? I asked, my voice trembling. Sarah waved a dismissive hand. Oh, that old thing, I put it in a box in the attic, Dad. It was making the room look so gloomy. We need to modernize a bit, don't we? Gloomy, Eleanor's smile. I felt a rage I hadn't felt in years. You had no right, I shouted. That was my wife. This is still her home. Tom stepped in front of Sarah. Now, Tony, calm down. It's just a picture. You're getting yourself all worked up over nothing. You'll have a heart attack. It's not nothing, I insisted. It's everything. Sarah looked at me, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of something in her eyes. Shame. Regret. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by that cold, hard look that was becoming so familiar. Dad, you're being hysterical. It's for the best. We need to move on. Move on. From Eleanor. From everything that mattered. That night, I cried myself to sleep in my little back room. I felt utterly defeated. I was losing her all over again, piece by piece, the final straw. It came on a Tuesday. I remember it was raining. A cold, miserable autumn day. My pension had just come in. I'd gone to the bank, withdrawn a small amount for myself for essentials. When I got back, Tom was waiting for me. Tony, he said, that oily smile on his face. Good news. I've got this amazing investment opportunity, guaranteed returns, but I need the capital today. Sarah and I were thinking, your pension money this month. No, I said, just don't know. I was tired of being their personal bank. Tom's smile vanished. What do you mean, no? I mean no, Tom. It's my money. I need it. Need it for what? He sneered. Are more flowers for a dead woman? Some old man's hobby supplies? The contempt in his voice, it was unbearable. Sarah came into the hall then, drawn by our raised voices. What's going on? Your father's being unreasonable, Tom said. He won't help us out. After everything we do for him. Dad, Sarah said, her voice sharp. Tom needs this. It's important for our future. For Leo's future. And what about my future? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. What about my dignity? Dignity? Sarah laughed, a short, ugly sound. You're an old man living off our generosity. What dignity are you talking about? Her generosity? In my house. With my money. The injustice of it all. The sheer audacity. It made something snap inside me. This is my house, Sarah, I said, my voice rising, stronger than it had been in years. Mine and Eleanor's. You have twisted everything, taken everything. I want you out. Both of you. I want my home back. There was a stunned silence. Tom looked furious. Sarah. Sarah's face went pale, then flushed with anger. Her eyes, those eyes I once loved, that once held such sweetness, they narrowed into slits of pure, cold fury. Your house, she hissed. You ungrateful old fool. This isn't your house anymore. We've been paying the mortgage, the bills for years now with the money you supposedly lent us. It's our house, by rights, morally, if not legally yet. It was a lie, a monstrous lie. They'd used my money, bled me dry, and now they were claiming ownership. Get out, she said. her voice low and dangerous. "Get out of my house." "Sarah, no," I pleaded, the fight suddenly draining out of me, replaced by a cold dread. "You can't mean this. I'm your father." "You stopped being my father when you became a millstone around our necks," she spat. Tom stood beside her, a smug, triumphant look on his face. He'd won. He'd turned my daughter completely against me. "Pack a bag," Sarah said, her voice devoid of all emotion, "and be gone by tonight, or I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing." Trespassing. In my own home. The world seemed to tilt. I couldn't breathe. Not her. Not Sarah. My little girl. How could she do this? How could she become this monster? I stumbled back to my little room, my heart hammering against my ribs. My mind was a whirlwind of disbelief, pain, and a terrible, sickening clarity. This was it. This was the end. I didn't pack much. What was there to pack? My life, my memories. They weren't in a suitcase. I put on my warmest coat, stuffed a few essentials into a small canvas bag, my medication, my wallet with the few dollars I had left, a photograph of Eleanor I kept hidden. When I came out, they were in the living room watching television as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't just destroyed a man's life, their own father's life. I walked to the front door. My hand hovered over the doorknob. The doorknob Eleanor had chosen all those years ago. This was the last time I would touch it, the last time I would stand in this hall. I didn't look back. I couldn't. I opened the door and stepped out into the rain. The door clicked shut behind me, a sound of absolute finality. The rain was cold, seeping into my coat. I started walking, with no destination in mind, just away from that house, that betrayal. The streets of Oakhaven, once so familiar, seemed alien, hostile. Each window I passed, glowing with warmth and light, was a reproach. Families inside, safe, together. While I, Tony Jenkins, was homeless. I ended up in the park, the one by the river where Eleanor and I used to walk, where I'd pushed Michael and Sarah on the swings. The memories were a fresh torment. There was a bench under a large, dripping oak tree. It was sheltered a little from the worst of the rain. I sat down. The wood was cold, damp. Night fell. The park emptied. The sounds of the town faded, replaced by the sighing of the wind in the trees, the relentless patter of rain. I was cold. So cold. But it wasn't just the weather. It was a coldness deep inside, a coldness of the soul. Shame washed over me. What if someone saw me? Tony Jenkins, respected carpenter, a decent man, now a vagrant on a park bench. The humiliation was a heavy cloak. I thought about Michael. Should I call him? What would I say? "Your sister threw me out, son. I'm sleeping in the park." The shame was too great. Not yet. Sleep was impossible. I dozed fitfully, jolting awake at every sound. My body ached. Hunger gnawed at my stomach. Dawn eventually came, grey and miserable. The rain had stopped, but the air was raw. I watched the town slowly come to life. People jogging, walking their dogs. They glanced at me. This old man huddled on a bench, then quickly looked away. I was invisible. Or worse, an eyesore. I spent the day wandering, trying to keep warm. I had a few dollars. I bought a coffee and a stale bun at a Greasy Spoon cafe. It was the best food I'd ever tasted. I nursed that coffee for hours, just to stay in the warmth, but eventually I had to leave. The second night was harder. The cold seemed to penetrate deeper. My hope, already fragile, began to crumble. Despair started to whisper in my ear. Was this how it ended? Alone, forgotten on a park bench? The thought of Eleanor, of her disappointment, her sorrow if she could see me now, it was almost more than I could bear. But then, something inside me, a tiny ember I thought had died, flickered. No, I would not let them break me. I had survived hardship before. I had survived the loss of Eleanor. I would survive this indignity, this cruelty. It would not be the end of Tony Jenkins. I didn't have a plan, just a stubborn refusal to give in. I was old, yes, but I wasn't dead yet. The next morning, the third day, I was sitting on that same bench, trying to summon the will to move, to do something, anything. I must have looked a sight. Unshaven, disheveled, my clothes damp and creased. A woman walking a small dog paused a little way off, looking at me. I tried to make myself smaller, to fade into the background. She started walking towards me. Oh, no, I thought. She's going to tell me to move on, or call the police. But as she got closer, her expression wasn't hostile. It was puzzled, concerned. "Tony," she said, her voice hesitant. "Tony Jenkins, is that you?" I looked up. My eyes were blurry, tired. The woman. She looked familiar, vaguely. "It's me, Tony, Margaret Peterson. From down the street years ago. My late husband, George, and he used to play chess with you, remember?" Mrs. Peterson, of course. She'd moved away after George died, a few years before Eleanor fell ill. I hadn't seen her in ages. Tears welled up in my eyes. I couldn't stop them. To be recognized, to be called by my name. "Mrs. Peterson," I croaked. "Yes, it's me." She looked shocked, her eyes taking in my condition. "Tony, dear Lord, what's happened to you? What are you doing here?" And then it all came pouring out. The whole sordid story, Sarah, Tom, the house, the eviction. The words tumbled out, disjointed, fueled by 2 days of misery and silence. She listened. She didn't interrupt. Her expression shifted from shock to horror, then to a fierce, protective anger. Her little dog, a terrier of some sort, sat patiently by her feet, as if sensing the gravity of the moment. When I finally finished, exhausted, voice hoarse, she reached out and took my cold, trembling hand. Her hand was warm, firm. That daughter of yours," she said, her voice tight with indignation. "And that husband, monsters, absolute monsters." She stood up. "Well, you're not spending another minute out here, Tony Jenkins. You're coming home with me. I've got a spare room. It's not much, but it's warm, and it's safe." "Oh, Mrs. Peterson, I couldn't," I began, overwhelmed by her kindness. "Nonsense," she said firmly. "George would never forgive me if I left his old chess partner out in the cold. Come on now, lean on me." And just like that, a lifeline, an angel in sensible shoes, walking a little dog. She helped me up. I was stiff, unsteady. She lived in a small, neat bungalow not far from the park. It was warm inside, clean. It smelled of coffee and cinnamon. She sat me down in a comfortable armchair, fussed over me, made me a hot drink, a proper meal, toast and eggs. It felt like a banquet. She didn't press me for more details. She just took care of me. Gave me a hot shower, some of George's old day clean clothes that were a bit big but wonderfully warm. She made up the spare bed with fresh sheets. That night, for the first time in what felt like an eternity, I slept in a proper bed, between clean sheets, safe, warm. I cried a little, in gratitude, in relief, but also in sorrow for what I had lost, for the daughter who was no more. The next morning, after a good breakfast, Mrs. Peterson, Margaret, she insisted I call her Margaret, sat me down with a cup of tea. "Tony," she said gently, "we need to call your son, Michael. He needs to know what's happened." I'd been dreading this, the shame of it. But she was right. Michael had a right to know, and I realized, with a clarity that had been missing for too long, that I needed his help. I couldn't fight this alone. Margaret found his number for me. My hands were shaking so much, I could barely dial. "Hello?" Michael's voice on the other end, strong, familiar. "Michael, it's Dad." There was a pause. "Dad? Are you okay? You sound strange. Sarah said you weren't feeling well." "Sarah?" Of course. She'd already started laying the groundwork, controlling the narrative. "Michael," I said, my voice thick with emotion, "I'm not okay. Not at all. Sarah threw me out of the house." Silence. Then, "She what? Dad? What are you talking about?" That's not possible." So I told him everything from the beginning, how they'd moved in, the money, the control, the emotional abuse, the final, brutal eviction. Margaret sat beside me, holding my hand, offering silent support. As Michael listened, his disbelief turned to a slow, simmering anger, then to outright fury. I could hear it in his voice, the tremor of rage. That bitch, he exploded. And Tom. I never trusted that weasel. Dad, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you call me sooner? I was ashamed, son, I whispered. Too ashamed. Ashamed? Dad, you have nothing to be ashamed of. They're the ones who should be ashamed. They're monsters. Where are you now? Are you safe? I'm with an old friend, Margaret Peterson. She found me in the park. She's been wonderful. In the park? His voice cracked. Oh, Dad. Oh, God, I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have known. Guilt now, lacing his anger. It's not your fault, Michael. Sarah, she's very convincing. She fooled me for a long time too. I'm coming, Dad. Right now. I'll be there in a few hours. Don't you go anywhere. Are you really okay? I'm better now, son. Thanks to Margaret. Just get here when you can. I'm on my way. He hung up. Margaret patted my hand. He sounds like a good son, Tony. He is, I said, a wave of relief washing over me. I wasn't alone anymore. Michael arrived in under 3 hours, his face a mask of anger and concern. He hugged me tightly, and I clung to him, the strong, capable man my son had become. He thanked Margaret profusely, his voice thick with emotion. Then he turned his attention to the matter at hand. We're going to sort this out, Dad. They're not getting away with this. His energy was formidable. He made calls, first to a lawyer friend of his, who specialized in elder abuse cases. Then he called Sarah. I couldn't listen to that conversation. I heard his raised voice from the other room, though sharp, accusatory. Margaret made us more tea. The lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Miss Davies, agreed to meet us the next day. Michael arranged for me to stay with him and his wife, Clara, in the city. Margaret insisted I take some of George's warmer clothes. You'll need them, Tony, and I won't take no for an answer. Her kindness was a balm to my wounded spirit. Saying goodbye to Margaret was hard. She'd been my savior. You call me, Tony, you hear? She said, hugging me. Let me know how you're getting on. And if you ever need anything. Thank you, Margaret, I said, my voice choked, for everything. The journey to Michael's home was a blur. I was exhausted, emotionally drained. Clara, Michael's wife, was waiting for us. She was horrified when Michael explained what had happened, her eyes full of sympathy. She fussed over me, made me comfortable in their guest room. Their 2 children, my grandchildren, Emily and Ben, were thankfully asleep. I wasn't ready to face their innocent questions yet. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of legal meetings, affidavits and difficult conversations. Miss Davies was a godsend, sharp, compassionate, and utterly determined. She explained that getting the house back immediately might be difficult, as Sarah and Tom had entrenched themselves, and Sarah's name was on the bank accounts they'd systematically emptied. The legal battle would be to try and recover some of my assets, and to get a restraining order to keep them away from me. The process of recounting everything, of dredging up all the painful details for the legal statements, was agonizing. But Michael was there by my side every step of the way. Clara was wonderfully supportive, making sure I was eating, resting. Emily and Ben, once they understood a simplified version of what had happened, that Grandma Sarah had been very unkind to Grandpa and he needed to stay with them for a while, were sweet and affectionate. Their uncomplicated love was a powerful medicine. We found out the extent of Sarah and Tom's deceit. They had indeed been siphoning money from my accounts for years. Tom had several failed businesses and a string of debts. My house, my beloved home, was heavily mortgaged, the equity stripped away. It made me sick to my stomach. All those years of hard work, of careful saving by Eleanor and me, gone. Stolen by my own daughter and her feckless husband. There were confrontations, mediated by lawyers. Sarah was defiant, cold. She painted herself as the victim, the dutiful daughter who had sacrificed so much to care for an increasingly difficult and confused old man. Tom backed her up, full of bluster and lies. Listening to their version of events was like stepping into an alternate reality. It was terrifying to see how completely they had twisted the truth, how utterly devoid of remorse they were. I barely recognized the woman who was my daughter, the Sarah I knew, or thought I knew, the little girl I had adored, was gone, replaced by this hard, grasping stranger. The legal process dragged on. It was stressful, expensive. Michael bore the brunt of the costs, waving away my attempts to contribute what little I had left. "This is on me, Dad," he'd say. "I should have protected you better." Eventually, we reached a settlement. For it wasn't a complete victory. I didn't get the house back, it was too encumbered with debt, and the legal fight to evict them would have been protracted and even more costly. But we managed to salvage a portion of my original capital, enough for me to live on, carefully. And we got the restraining order. Sarah and Tom were legally barred from contacting me or coming near me. It felt like a hollow victory. I had some money, some security, but I had lost my home, and I had irrevocably lost my daughter. The pain of that was a constant ache. Michael and Clara wanted me to live with them permanently. They were so kind, but I didn't want to be a burden on them, on their family. I needed my own space, however small, my own independence. So, with Michael's help, I found this little apartment. It's not much, just 2 rooms and a kitchenette, in a quiet building with a few other seniors. But it's clean, it's warm, and most importantly, it's mine. No one can come in here and move my things, or tell me I'm a burden, or throw me out. I have a lock on my door, and I control the key. That means more to me than I can say. The first few months here were hard. The silence was loud. I missed Eleanor terribly. I missed the life we'd had. I had nightmares about the park bench, about Sarah's cold eyes. Trusting people was difficult. Every knock on the door made me jump. But slowly, very slowly, I started to heal. Michael and Clara and the grandkids visited regularly. Emily would draw me pictures. Ben would tell me about his school football team. Their laughter filled my little apartment, chasing away some of the shadows. I started going for walks. I joined a seniors group at the local community centre, a suggestion Dr. Evans had made all that time ago, which I'd dismissed. I even started playing chess again, with a retired schoolteacher named Frank. He's no George Peterson, but he's a good opponent. I reconnected with Margaret Peterson by phone. She was overjoyed to hear I was settled and safe. We talk every week now. Her friendship has been a precious gift. I still think about Sarah, of course. How could I not? There's a part of me that will always mourn the daughter I lost, the relationship that was poisoned beyond repair. I see her sometimes in my mind's eye, as a little girl laughing, her hand in mine. And then I see her as she is now, hard-faced, a stranger. The contrast is a knife to the heart. What happened to her? Was it Tom's influence? Was there always a darkness in her that I refused to see? Or was it just life, the pressures, the disappointments, that can twist a person out of shape? I don't have the answers. Maybe I never will. I worry about Leo, my grandson. What kind of upbringing is he having with parents like that? Will he grow up to be like them? The thought is a constant sorrow. I have no contact with him. That's part of the price I paid. Over time, I've found a measure of peace. My life is small now, quiet, but it's my own. I have my books, my memories of Eleanor, the good ones, the ones Sarah and Tom couldn't tarnish. I have my son, my daughter-in-law, my wonderful grandchildren who adore their Grandpa Tony. They are my future, my hope. I pour all the love I have into them, determined that they will know what true family means, that they will grow up understanding kindness, respect, integrity, all the things Sarah seemed to forget. I've learned some hard lessons. That love, even a father's love, isn't always enough. That betrayal can come from the most unexpected, the most cherished of places. That people can change or reveal a hidden self in ways that can shatter your world. But I've also learned about resilience. The resilience of the human spirit, mine and others. I've learned about the incredible kindness of strangers and the steadfast loyalty of old friends, and the fierce, protective love of a good son. I've learned that even after the deepest darkness, there can be light. Even after the most bitter loss, there can be new beginnings. So here I sit in my little apartment, the sun on my face. 80 years old, I've seen a lot of life, the good and the bad, the joy and the heartbreak, and I'm still here. I survived. I'm Tony Jenkins. I'm a father, a grandfather, a friend. I'm a man who lost his home but found himself again. I wanted to tell this story, not for pity. Pity, as I said, is a thin blanket. It doesn't keep out the cold for long. I told it because secrets, they fester. They eat you up from the inside. And telling it, it feels like setting down a heavy burden I've carried for too long. Maybe, just maybe, my story can be a little bit of a warning or a little bit of comfort to someone else out there. If you're in a situation where you feel trapped, where someone you love is hurting you, diminishing you, please, don't suffer in silence. Don't let shame be your jailer. Reach out. There are good people in this world. There is help to be found. You are not alone. Even when it feels like you are, believe me, an old man on a park bench found that out. And if you have aging parents or grandparents, cherish them. Listen to them. Don't assume you know what's best for them all the time. Sometimes all they need is to be heard, to be respected, to be loved for who they are, not for what they can give you. Life is precious, and family, true family, is the greatest treasure we have. Don't let it be tarnished. Don't let it be lost. Thank you for listening to my story. It's been hard to tell, but necessary. Your company, even from afar, has meant a great deal. If you've made it this far, bless you. If you could press that little like button, or leave a comment, or even share this story if you think it might help someone. It helps me feel like this pain, this experience, wasn't all for nothing. It helps build a connection, a community, and an old man like me. He appreciates that more than words can say. I'm Tony Jenkins. My home now is small, but it's filled with a quiet peace. And it's mine, absolutely and unequivocally mine. And no one can ever take that away from me again. That, I think, is something to be grateful for. Thank you.